So now we're back here and there are a few more things we can do with our website to style it. And before we get to the footer, there are a couple things we want to do. You know, we have to style this table here. We still have this table and we said we would style it. There are a few things we can do with this table to learn how to style it a little bit more, make it a little bit better. And there are a couple things we can do just off the bat. So what I'm going to do is go back to Sublime Text, take a look at before we get to the table, we have an H3 for our video section. Over here in our video section, we have an H3 heading. Over top of that, I'm going to go ahead and uncomment this and go ahead and give that H3 heading the same kind of font style that our other headings have, because we applied it to the H2 and to the H1. We just didn't apply it to the H3. So we'll go ahead and save that and go back over here and see what that looks like. And then we refresh, and we can see now that that's changed as well. So it's just smaller. It's not an H2 heading, it's just smaller. But I decided to give it a fantasy font, generic fantasy font as well. But now let's go up here and style our table. Let's do some more with this table here. So we'll go over to Sublime Text. This will be our styles for our table. And what I'll do first of all, I'll take off this, uncomment this right here. And one of the things you can do with your table is you can give it a border if you will, like a border all around. And I'm going to comment this out right here and just say border solid black. And as I save that, we're going to do this a number of times, taking a look at things. This is our table as it is here. Refresh that. Now you see there's a border all around the table. So it's a border around the table element. It literally did it around the table element itself. So if I go back here, I want to hit border collapse. Now that's not going to do anything until we add borders to the other parts of our table, if you will. Because you'll see a difference when we add borders inside, because a lot of times you want borders inside, not just on the outside. It depends on how you want to do it. You can style it without borders if you want, but it depends on how you want to do it. That'll make a difference when we want to put borders on the other parts of our website or other parts of our table. But I'm going to put this border collapse. You won't see what that looks like just yet until we do some other stuff, but I'll put that there because that's an important rule to have. Now the table heading. So we know we had a table header that we used, and I'll go ahead and uncomment this. And what I'll do with that is we'll have text align center. We'll put the table heading in the center and make a border solid black. I just put it for the table header so you can see how it's doing kind of step by step. So text align center and border solid black. I'll go here. This is the way our table looks right now, and this is the table header. If I refresh it, you can see now it has some border right here, because we put a border and the text is in the center. So now a border has been applied to our table header section as well. So we have that text align center solid black. Now table data, and we know that our table is made up of data. The content we have on the inside of it is data. And so all that data, we want to do something with those individual cells. If you will, there are a number of different ways you can do it, but the individual cells. So I'm going to uncomment this and take this off. And I'm going to say we get some padding inside those cells. Make it a little bit bigger so there's more padding there. And let's make the border solid black too inside those cells. And I'm going to save it. Let's give some space inside the cells, and let's get a border inside it. So now we're kind of bunched up together. Let's do a little border. Let's refresh this. Now we see that we have space. We've added some padding in there, a little bit of top and bottom, left and right, and the whole thing is kind of spaced out better now, and we have borders inside there. Now that border becomes important because if I wanted to do something different with the border, let's say if I wanted to go back here and take out the border collapse, save that. The border collapse helps us as we kind of move forward. It helps us because without the border collapse, we get this double effect. If you want that, you can have it fine, but you may not, sometimes you don't want that on your table. And so having that border collapse, let me bring that back and save that. Having that border collapse will help that not take place, help that not happen. And I'll just hit save there. Now just to show you that I can add, padding, and I can add content and rules to any of these elements within the table. Here's the table row, and everything has a table row. And I'm just going to go ahead and say border solid black. It's really not going to change very much visually on our website. It's not going to change very much visually, but you could add it to any one of these, the table data, table row. I'll just save that. You're not going to see anything very much visually with it. I'll hit refresh. And it'll pretty much look the same in terms of it essentially has added the lines and a border around all of our table, if you will. You don't necessarily have to use a table row because you see it was working without it. I just wanted to show you that you can add it to that. You can use that table element as well. Now let's look at this. Let's look at a couple of new things. I'll take this out right here. Let's look at a couple of new things. Now we talked about pseudo classes when we had the hover effect when we use our linked elements on our web page. and we had that, but you can also add other types of pseudo classes. And when it comes to tables, there's an nth child pseudo class. What it allows you to do, and you can do this with other elements, but it really comes in handy with tables. You can do it with any element. It allows you to take the odd, you can do odd or even. There's a number of different formulas or content that you can put, values you can put inside this parentheses. It's kind of passing and giving information to this particular pseudo class, if you will. So I'm telling the browser to take the table rows and take the nth child, take every odd child and make the background color for that odd child, that row, the TR row, and make it this pale turquoise. And so let's save that. Oops. Let's save that and see what that looks like for this pale turquoise. And essentially, if we look at that, so what are our odd rows and how do we make them the background different? So I'll hit refresh here. And as you can see, it's done it for every odd row. So we have a TR row, a table row for a header element. That's the first, that's one. And we have, this is our second row, this is our third row, this is the fourth. So it's taking the odd ones in this whole table here and it's making the background color to be pale turquoise. So that adds a little bit of flavor, a little bit of something different to your table. And there are a number of different ways that you can imagine, as you're probably thinking, that you can style a table. You could be as creative as you want to be. So the last thing I'm going to do with the table, before we move on to our footer, is add another pseudo class to it. Let's do a hover effect. And let's take the rows that we've been working with, and let's make the background cover be gold once we hover over them. And see, that might be a nice effect. Let's see how that looks when we add that, what that'll look like when we add it. So go back over here, TR hover gold background. We've got to hit refresh. And now you can see when we hover over each of the rows, they turn gold. And that's also a nice effect. You may have a table that's like a sports team or some sports data that you're putting out, and you want to be able to hover over it and know which row you're on. And you obviously can make these clickable and add to other things. You can make them links. You can do a number of things with the data that's in your table row. But just wanted to show you that you can do this. And adding this type of hover effect, you can add this to your table and do a lot with it. So now you can see our website is really beginning to take shape as we've kind of laid things out on our website. But now what we're going to do, now that we've added this hover, we'll go ahead and do the rest of our website in terms of the footer and add some more there. But play around with this. Play around with the table. As you think about it and you really get to know CSS, there's so much you can do with tables and the styles with them. And this was just a really simple example. We're going to go ahead and move forward from there and move on to our footer section in just a minute. Okay, so there's one last thing we have to do, and we have to style our footer. So there's a lot that we've added already to our website, a lot of content that we've added. But hey, what's a website, what's a web page without a footer? So we're going to go ahead and style our footer. In order to do that, I'm going to come back over here to Sublime Text, and we're going to go make our way to our footer area, which is obviously at the very bottom of our page, of our web page, our index.html file. And this is the content that we added earlier in the course. We added a little bit of content around just an address element when we set up our document, and have some contact information in here, computer science through the web.com. The whole footer section is here. So we're going to apply styles to this entire footer section. And it's a nice way to kind of section everything off and finish everything off as a part of our course. So I'm going to uncomment the styles that we already have. And I'm going to go ahead and just comment out a couple of these so we can kind of take them and see what effect they're having on our website. So obviously we have a background color and a linear gradient applied to our header, as we know, the blue to black. We're going to apply the same background color and linear gradient going toward the direction of the bottom, the same color blue, that RGB that really looks more like blue, and let it fade into black. So we're going to apply that to our footer, and I'm going to hit save. If I go back over here, we see already now what our footer looks like, and if I hit refresh, we can see that the bottom of our footer looks more like this now. We have more of the same kind of background that our header has at the top. So now I'm going to go ahead and comment out a couple of more of these things. And so this is the color white, just to make the text pop out a little bit better on the screen. And I'm going to go ahead and take off margin and padding so we can add some margin and padding into our code here. And this will give us a padding of 30 pixels around the top, the right, the bottom, and the left. And we'll have a margin of 0 right here. You can play around with that if you like and make different margins if you like, but we'll have a margin of 0. So let's see what this will all do, the color white and so forth. What will that all do to our footer? Let's save that and take a look at it. And if we hit refresh, we can see that our footer now has the color white. We have padding there, and it's kind of nicely beginning to shape up. And so the next thing we want to do probably is to center this in the center of our screen here, to center this text. And the way we do that is to have text align center. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off, text align center. And I'll go ahead and take off the font size here so we can add in font size and make it 2.3 times the base M that we set for our font size. And then I'll go ahead and take off this font style italic as well. So that way we're going to center the text, align it in the center, increase the font size so it's bigger, and make it italicized. I'll go ahead and save that. Go over here and hit refresh. And then there you go. Well, voila, we have this information. So thank you for taking this course. And I really do want to thank you for taking this course. We've been able to do a lot and accomplish a lot in this course. And before we finish and kind of close out here, I want to go on and say just a couple things. You know, if you go back in and practice a great deal more with the styles that we set up for CSS, one of the things you could possibly do is to go back up to the About Me page that we created in our last course. And perhaps you've added some type of content to your About Me page, or if you went ahead and created this dummy page for the background, you may want to go ahead and actually create another index.html page and link to it if you wish to. But go ahead and style this About Me page. You can link to the same style sheet at the top of that, just like you would do for this one that we just did. And you can also apply some of the same styles, have the same footer, or whatever you want to do. You can practice more with the syntax of CSS by applying this to your About Me page. So with that being said, and all the information and all the things that we've looked at and done in our website here, I think we've done a lot and accomplished quite a bit with our website. But there's a couple more things you may want to think about as we move into learning more about HTML and learning more about CSS and web development in general. If you go back over here, and I just minimize this a little bit, one of the things you'll notice, if you're a developer, a lot of times you'll find that people who are watching your website, they're looking at your website on different types of devices. Obviously, they're looking at it, small devices, phones, sometimes computers. If we look at our website, it looks pretty decent big, but if you just take it and minimize your window, this is exactly what you do as a developer. You start to look different sizes and see where things look good or they don't look so good, that type of thing. So if I look right here, as we make this smaller and smaller, our grid that we have laid out to lay out our content, it's a little bit bunched in. It gets a little bit bunched in as we get smaller and smaller. We may not want that to happen. So is there a way, there's a question we may ask ourselves, is there a way that we could do something with our grid, this grid layout, and do more with it so that it snaps and does something differently when the window resizes or when somebody may be viewing this off of a different type of device? Well, obviously it does do that. There are a lot of things you could do with grid. So if you stick with us and you stay with us in our next course, we're going to talk a lot more about the grid layout and different things, what you can do to actually do more with this particular property in CSS and how you can do more with it in terms of your website. So stick around with us. Thank you for taking this course, and we hope to see you soon.